Diversity in India. So India is a unique country which have different languages. India is a country of many diversities. We speak different languages, have various types of food, celebrate different festivals, practice different religions. But actually, if you think about it, we do many things that are similar, except that we do them in different ways. Now, besides practicing different religion, having different languages, having various types of foods, you just think that there are also similar things which makes India a diverse land. So let us see, how do we explain diversity? A little more than 200 years ago, or long before the train, aeroplane, bus or car became a part of our lives, people travel from one part of the world to another in ships or horses, on camels or on foot. So in modern world, we have cars, we have trains, we have aeroplanes, we have buses. But if you go back to 200 years ago, people, how they used to travel? They used to travel by foot or on ships or on horses from one part of the world to another. Often they went in search of new lands or new places to settle in, or for people to trade with. And because it took so long to travel, once they got to a place, people stayed there, often for a long time. Many others left their homes because there were famines and drought, and they could not get enough to eat. Some went in search of work, while others left because there was a war. So people in search of new lands, new places, they settled, and the traders who has a trading business from trades from one place to another. What they did, because of the distance, they settled in one place and started their own business from that place itself instead of going to their homes. Maybe they left their homes due to many reasons. It might be because of drought. Drought means dry season. Then famines. Famines means flood. And some might have left their homes because of war. And they settled in different parts of the world. Sometimes, as they began to make their homes in new places, people began to change a little, and at other times, they managed to do things in the old way. So their languages, food, music, religions became a mix of the old and the new. And out of this intermixing of cultures came something new and different. So, for example, if your father got transferred from Maharashtra to Kerala, what other changes will take place? First of all, the place will be totally new to you. Next, the food also will be new, language will also be new. So, slowly what you will do, you will try to adapt their food, their language, and then slowly you will get mixed up with the local people. Because if you can't speak the local language, it will be very difficult for you to adjust in the society. Because you have your own mother tongue, and in Kerala they have their own mother tongue and their own local language. So in order to adjust in the new place, first thing what you have to do, you have to start speaking slowly in their local language. Then the next thing, you may try their local dishes. Like in Kerala, what food they eat idli, they eat sambar, they eat dosa, they eat upma. So slowly you will try to make their dishes. Then afterwards, the next thing you will do, you will try to wear their dresses, isn't it? So in this way, you can adapt to a new place, and this is a mixture of mixing cultures of yours and theirs. So this also makes India very unique. The history of many places shows us how many different cultural influences have helped to shape life and culture there. Thus, regions became very diverse because of their unique histories. So, because of histories also, we have a diverse country. Similarly, diversity also comes about when people adapt their lives to the geographical area in which they live. For example, living near the sea is quite different from living in a mountainous area. So, geographical area also differs. If you are living in a plain area or sea area, and suddenly if you go to the mountainous area, what will happen? You will not be able to adjust. It will take time for you to adjust to that climatic condition, to that geographical area. So the geography also matters. Not only do people have different clothing and eating habits, but even the kinds of work they do are different. In cities, it is often easy to forget how closely people live and tied to their physical surroundings. This is because in the city, people seldom grow their own vegetables and grain. Instead, they depend on the market to buy all the food and other goods that they need. So in cities and towns, we see that very rarely we see that people grow crops, and they grow crops and vegetables. Instead, we see that they are dependent on the markets. They buy from the markets. We buy from the markets, isn't it? So the clothing and eating habits also are different from place to place. People who live in villages, what they do farming. But people who lives in cities, what they do, do they do farming? No. Instead, they go to the market and purchase the things. Let us try to understand what we mean when we say that historical and geographical factors influence the diversity of a region. We can do this by reading about life in two different parts of the country, Kerala and Ladakh. So we will see how the geography and history has also influenced to become India a diverse land. We have taken two examples, Kerala and Ladakh. Kerala, we know that it is a coastal area, and Ladakh is a mountainous area. So obviously their way of living is quite different from each other. But what is the main thing in that which made these two lands communicate or diverse? Look at the map of India in an atlas. Atlas means a book of map. And look at Kerala and Ladakh. Can you list 3 ways in which the different geographical locations of these two regions would influence the following? So go through the map and mark Kerala and Ladakh. We know that Kerala lies in the southern part and Ladakh in the northern part. So these are the questions, the food people eat. You have to find out what people eat in Kerala and what people eat in Ladakh. The clothes they wear. What are the clothes the people of Kerala wear and what are the clothes the people of Ladakh they wear? The work they do. What is the work of the Kerala people and what is the work of the Ladakh people? You have to find out these answers. Now this is the landscape of desert area of Ladakh. This is a mountain. But it is not covered with snow. The mountain is not covered with snow. It looks like a desert, very dry. Ladakh is a desert in the mountains in the eastern part of Jammu and Kashmir. Very little agriculture is possible here since this region does not receive any rain and is covered in snow for a large part of the year. There are very few trees that can grow in the region. For drinking water, people depend on the melting snow during the summer months. So we know that Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, throughout the year, the mountains are covered with snow, and there the cultivation is very less because of the mountainous soil. The soil is not good for cultivation. And that's why people, what they do different kinds of occupation there, and they wait for summer season to come so that they can drink water, because over there is very little rainfall. People here keep sheep and goats. The goats in this region are special because they produce pashmina wool. Now what is pashmina wool? Pashmina wool. Pashmina wool means the wool which comes out from the shearing of sheep. From the shearing of sheep, we get the wool from the sheep, and that is known as a pashmina wool, and it is very expensive. This wool is prized, and pashmina shawls cost a lot of money. From that pashmina wool we get the pashmina shawls, and those are very costly. The people in Ladakh carefully collect the wool of the goats and sell this to traders from Kashmir. Pashmina shawls are chiefly woven in Kashmir. The people eat meat and milk products like cheese and butter. Each family owns some goats, cows and does, means yak. Being a desert did not mean that Ladakh did not attract its share of traders. It was considered a good trade route as it had many passes through which caravans traveled to what is today called Tibet. So the Tibetan people used to travel in Ladakh for the trading business. These caravans carried textiles and spices, raw silk and carpets. Buddhism reached Tibet via Ladakh. So how did Buddhism settled in Ladakh? Through Tibet. Ladakh is also called Little Tibet. Islam was introduced in this region more than 400 years ago. So how the Muslim people settled in Ladakh some 400 years ago, and there is a significant Muslim population here. Ladakh has a very rich oral traditions of songs and poems. Local version of the Tibetan national epic, the Kesar Saga, are performed and sung by both Muslims and Buddhists. So the local song, the music which was sung by the Muslims and Buddhists, both by the Muslim and the Buddhist. Now coming to Kerala. Kerala is a state in the southwest corner of India. It is surrounded by the sea on one side and hills on the other. A number of spices like pepper, cloves and cardamoms are grown on the hills. It is spices that made this region an attractive place for traders. So, because of the spices like cloves, cardamom, pepper, it has become an attractive place for the traders. Jewish and Arab traders were the first to come here. The Apostle of Christ, St. Thomas, is believed to have come here nearly 2000 years ago, and he is credited with bringing Christianity to India. So who brought Christianity to India first? Some 2000 years back. It was by Apostle who is known as St. Thomas. So Christianity came in India some 2000 years ago in the state of Kerala. Many Arab traders also came and settled down here. Ibn Battuta, who traveled here a little less than 700 years ago, wrote a travelogue in which he describes the lives of Muslims and says that They were a highly respected community. The Portuguese discovered the sea route to India from Europe when Vasco da Gama landed with its ship here. Because of all these various historical influences, people in Kerala practice different religions such as Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism. The fishing nets used here look exactly like the Chinese fishing nets and are called chinawala. Even the utensils used for frying is called the chinachatti, and it is believed that the word chin could have come from China. The fertile land and climate are suited to growing rice, and a majority of people here eat rice, fish, and vegetables. So, the historical geographical features also influenced to make India a diverse land. Many traders from Tibet, from Arab, they came to Kerala for their trading business. Then also Muslim came to India, both in Ladakh as well as in Kerala. While Kerala and Ladakh are quite different in terms of their geographical features, the history of both regions have seen similar cultural influences. Similar cultural influences like Muslim, both the states have Muslim communities. Both regions were influenced by Chinese and Arab traders. It was the geography of Kerala which allowed for the cultivation of spices, and the special geographical location of Ladakh and its wool that drew traders to this region. Thus, history and geography are often tied in the cultural life of a region. The influence of diverse cultures is not merely a thing of the past. Our present life are all about moving from place to place from work, and with each move our cultural traditions and way of life slowly become part of the new place we are in. Similarly, in our neighborhoods, we live close to people from several communities. Our day lives are about the ways in which we do things together and hear stories about each other's life, customs, and traditions. Now, unity and diversity. Now, unity and diversity means despite the belonging from different religion, from different culture, speaking different languages, then following different religion, India is united. India is united, and that's why it is known as a diverse land. India's diversity has always been recognized as a source of its strength. When the British ruled India, women and men from different cultural, religious, and regional backgrounds came together to oppose them. So we know that during the British era, they tried to create misunderstanding between India and Muslim, and so far they were succeeded in doing this. But still, when Britishers were trying to create misunderstanding between Hindu and Muslim, before they were trying, both the Hindu and Muslim, they opposed. They had protest against the Britishers. When the British ruled India, women and men from different cultural, religious, and regional backgrounds came together to oppose them. India's freedom movement had thousands of people of different backgrounds in it. They worked together to decide joint actions. They went to jail together, and they found different ways to oppose the British. Interestingly, the British thought they could divide Indians because they were so different and then continue to rule them. But the people showed how they could be different and yet be united in their battle against the British. So there is a song. Don't forget the days of blood, O friend. In the midst of your happiness, remember to shed a tear for us. The hunter has torn away every single flower. Do plant a flower in the desert garden, dear friend. Having fallen to bullets, we slept in Jallianwala Bagh. Do light a lamp on this lonely grave, O friend. The blood of Hindus and Muslims flows together today. Do soak your robe in this river of blood, dear friend. Some rot in jails while others lie in their graves. Do shed a few tears of them, O friend. So this was a song sung by the people after the Jallianwala Bagh incident took place. Now the Jallianwala Bagh, which was taken place in Amritsar, where thousands of people were killed unnecessarily without any warning, and many were injured. And that also when people were celebrating Baisakhi, and we know that Baisakhi is the start of New Year for the Punjabis. The song was sung after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Amritsar, in which a British general opened fire on a large group of unarmed, peaceful people, killing many and wounding even more. Men and women, Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims, rich and poor, had gathered to protest against the British. So after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Amritsar took place, where thousands of people were killed, people from Hindu community, from Muslim, men and women, the Sikh, the rich and poor, everybody they gathered and they protested against the Britishers. This song was composed and sung to honor the memory of those brave people. So this was the song sung for the people who had given life. In the memory of them, this song was sung. Songs and symbols that emerged during the freedom struggle serve as a constant reminder of our country's rich traditions of respect for diversity. Do you know the story of the Indian flag? It was used as a symbol of protest against the British by people everywhere. The Indian flag, our national flag. So every Independence Day, it is being hoisted by the Prime Minister of India to show respect. In his book, The Discovery of India, who has written the book, The Discovery of India, it is written by Jawaharlal Nehru, says that Indian unity is not something imposed from the outside, but rather it was something deeper and within its fold. The widest tolerance of belief and customs was practiced, and every variety knowledge acknowledged and even encouraged. It was Nehru who coined the phrase unity and diversity. So unity and diversity, the name was given by Jawaharlal Nehru to describe the country. Indian national anthem composed by Rabindranath Tagore is another expression to the unity of India. In what way does the national anthem describe this unity? So during the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, Gandhiji, he protested along with many other people against the Britishers. So can you just imagine how people was killed? What was the condition of those people who was killed without any warning? It was so dangerous. So this was the chapter today, Understanding Diversity. Next time we'll meet with a new chapter. Till then, take care and thank you.